What's up everybody, Wins here with my first Borderlands 4 build video. This is my Kinetic Survivor build. It's built really for new to Borderlands players or returning players that may not quite understand the elemental affinities. Those who want some extra survivability as you're leveling up to 50. I'm going to take you step by step through what skill points to apply, when to apply them, what weapons to focus on, what gear to focus on, and then hopefully just make your leveling campaign a little easier and a little more enjoyable. So the way this build works is by using kinetic weapons. We're going to do this by use the kinetic weapons to stack crits. We're going to boost our status effect damage using bleeds from the kinetic weapons, and then we're going to gain as much lifesteal as possible, and then later on in the skill tree around 25-26 you'll be able to boost your damage because of your lifesteal capabilities as well. The goal when I was making this was really for those that are just looking to learn the game, learn the mechanics, learn all the new weapons. So instead of focusing on what element you need to use, figure out what type of gun you like to use, what manufacturers you like to use, what manufacturer parts you like on different weapons, what enhancements work best. Going out, learning all the mechanics, and then later you take everything you've built on to add the affinities in to do even more damage later in the end game. Before we get started, I'm going to put the skill tree and skill points on screen so you can save them for future use. If you want to hear the description and why this works, stick around and we're going to get started right now. Starting out, I'm going to go over the skill points first and then go over the action skills, the augments, and the capstones later. And we're going to be using the first 5 points put into Leeching Attunement. You want this because we're going to be using kinetic weapons only, and this is going to give us lifesteal to help boost our health in the fight, and that's going to be a 10%, so 2% per stat point you put in here. The next 5 points we're putting in are going to be in Bloodletter. This gives us gun and skill critical hits have a chance to cause bleed, which causes kinetic status effect damage over time. And this is going to be a 50% chance with 30% of gun damage per second for 4 seconds, and it can stack up to 20 times. The reason you want to do this is because you're going to use that kinetic status effect as extra damage, but also extra lifesteal to help survivability. The next 5 points are going into material components, so it gives us 35% bonus kinetic damage and kinetic status effect damage, which is only going to boost our lifesteal from Leeching Attunement and also boost our damage from Bloodletter. The next 5 points are going to be up to you how you want to do it, but I went with 5 points into target prescience because it gives a bonus critical hit chance against any part of the enemy at 50% or 15%. And the reason I'm saying it's up to you, if you're good at hitting those critical hit shots, you can go straight to Grave Vitality and skip the bonus 15 on any part of the body. And that's going to give you a bonus of maximum health capacity and health regeneration on kills. So you'll get a 5% per stack. So every time you kill something, you'll see your health bar will have a regeneration portion of the health bar where you're going to get that health back. Also, if the reason I'm saying it's up to you, if you know you can hit your crit shots more often and cause those bleeds from Bloodletter, then you can go into this and get into your capstone sooner as opposed to waiting another 5 points after this. Next 5 are going to go into Essence Leech, gaining lifesteal for 10%, and then if your action skill is active, it's going to be doubled. So now between Essence Leech and Leeching Attunement, we're now at 20% lifesteal, or potentially up to 30 if you have your action skill active. And this is again using kinetic weapons only. The next 3 are going to go into Blood is Power, which is gaining bonus kinetic damage based on lifesteal when our health is full, and this will give us a total of 300% of lifesteal, which will be 60% without your action skill on. And then the key here is that your health has to be full. So we're going to go into some of the shields and armor shields and energy shields that you can use in order to keep your armor up more, and then other tips to boost your health when we talk about action skills. For our action skill, we're going to have Incarnate active as for the green tree. This causes an explosion around you, dealing damage. It fully restores your health, which once again, that goes back into our last skill point that we use, which Blood is Power. So anytime you're low on health, you can use your action skill, boost your health, and then you're also going to be able to boost your damage, which I'll talk about in the red tree when we get to that point. And then you can use the action skill button again in order to shoot out Eldritch Blast, which causes damage, and then also will boost gun damage here, and I'll show you that in a second as well with the augments. Now for augments, I have two separate plans for the augments. The first one is going to be when we're running around fighting mobs out in the open world or on the missions on the way to the boss fight. We're going to use Energy Vampire. The reason for this is because it will deal status effect damage, and based on our attunement, which will be kinetic the whole time to keep our lifesteal up, you'll be able to do kinetic damage to everything around you. So not only will you boost your health from the initial hit of the action skill, but as you are near other enemies, they'll start doing status effect damage with kinetic damage, which will boost your health via your lifesteal. And then also as you hit more enemies, so if you take this and run into the middle of a group, it'll boost overshield based on the number of enemies that are being affected. So all of this is helping to just boost our survival by using our action skill. The next action skill is going to be Witchy Trigger Finger, and I'm going to use this mainly on the main boss fights towards the end of fights, or if you find an open world boss, I use it here too as well. The reason I'm going to do this is we're going to, one, use our action skill to again boost our health, but now whenever we use Eldritch Blast, so hitting the action skill again, we're going to increase our gun damage by 15%. Now that's going to stack 3 times, and the stack duration is 15 seconds. So what I do is, the technique I use is just spam the action skill on whatever you're attacking, so it does damage. It doesn't matter how much damage it's doing, because it's not going to be a significant amount. The key here is to boost that gun damage by 15%. And then once, like I said, we're getting into the red skill tree, our gun damage is going to be boosted even further once we use our action skill. The last part we're going to talk about is our capstone heart piercers, but I want to go back and say I messed up what I was calling these action skills in the previous section. Witchy Trigger Finger and Energy Vampire are both augments to your action skill Incarnate, and then Heart Piercer is going to be our capstone for this. So Eldritch Blast is now going to sacrifice health. It's going to sacrifice 20% of your current health to gain 150% of the sacrificed health as damage. Now, I know this goes contrary to Blood is Power of keeping our life full, but if we're using something like Witchy Trigger Finger, we want to be able to use Eldritch Blast to get the extra 15%. And then also, if you're using Energy Vampire, you're not going to need to use Eldritch Blast at all, because you can use the status effect AoE damage that is being put out via Energy Vampire Augment. And also, you're going to still want to use your action skill, 1, to boost your health back to full health for Blood is Power, but 2, we'll talk about when we get into the red tree, we're going to get an extra 37.5% damage to our gun damage when we use the action skill. Our next 5 points are going to go into the blue tree under Cold Iron, which is just a base 15% gun damage. Then we're going to go to the red tree for our next 5 points. We're going to put it into enchantment. So we're going to gain bonus kinetic damage with guns while action skill is active, which is 37.5%. And then if you're talking about on boss fights, that's in addition to the 45% that'll be from using your action skill. And then our last 5 points that we're going to use are going to go in, or excuse me, in the next 5 points, we'll have 1 left over, and I'll show you that in a second. That's going to be Vex and her minions gain increased status effect damage for 35%. So that's going into the Bloodletter with critical hits causing bleed damage. And then also there's some class mods out there that I can show you that have bonus status effect damage that this will also boost. And then our last point I put into Guns and Needles, which is just helping with our survival again. On kill, rep kit cooldown is restored. It's a 7% restored. Okay, now we're going to talk about guns and our other gear that we're going to use. Key piece for the weapons and the guns that I like is I just have 4 separate types that use different ammo types. You can see these are some of the ones I use. The key to this build is using kinetic. So find the weapons that work best for you using kinetic, and then build off of those, build around those. This is like I said, this is a beginner build, so it's designed for people that aren't necessarily familiar with the way some of the weapons work, such as this weapon has torque stickies versus this weapon is a Vladoff, which would be similar to your other FPS games that you would use. For me, my favorite weapons that I found throughout the entire time were Vladov manufacturers. At the lower levels, I just used Vladov just straight, and then as it progressed and you start getting the additional gun manufacturer licensed parts, I started using Vladovs with Jacobs. And the reason you want the Jacobs is because on critical hits, the hits will ricochet. Those will eventually be crits. So the first person you hit, or the first enemy you hit, it crits, has a chance to bleed. The second enemy that hits crits has a chance to bleed. All that goes into just boosting your overall damage, but then again, boosting that lifesteal for our survivability. One final thought on weapons, but kind of a random thought. If you haven't seen this legendary shotgun, it's the Hot Slugger. I found it as a random item of the day out of a vending machine. It is a lot of fun to use, especially with this boot with our boost to kinetic damage. It's essentially, once you get the stacks built, it's a 90% boost to your damage, and then if you're running your action skill at the time, it does even more damage. It becomes on open world and mobs within the fights just one shot, they're gone. It says it only does one set of damage numbers, but I've seen two. It has a chance to crit and ricochet, so I've killed two enemies with one shot. It's a lot of fun to use, so give it a shot and let me know in the comments if you do. For enhancements, I used the same Vladov enhancement for like 20 levels before I found this one. But really what I'm looking for in the enhancements isn't as much the main portion for the licensed manufacturer parts, but what's down below. And what I'm getting here is gun critical damage is 40% and SMG critical damage is 61%. So look for gun or enhancements that boost your critical damage, your overall gun damage. If you have a type of weapon, whether it be SMG, AR, shotgun, if you have that specific type that you really like to use, to find one that boosts its overall damage. And then also you can find some that boost status effect damage, which will help with the bleeds and lifesteal all in the same. For our class mods, I'm going to show you two class mods that I've swapped back and forth throughout the course of leveling and just found upgraded versions of them. The first one is Escalating Scion. The reason I like this one is because you get 2 extra into Leeching Attunement, Bloodletter, an extra into Material Components, and then you get 2 into Drinkful, which we haven't talked about Drinkful in the basic skills, but essentially when you deal gun damage, you gain a stack of Drinkful. It increases your fire rate, and that's up to 50 stacks. So your fire rate, as you're doing damage, is just going to continuously go up. But the key points, the big ones, are getting that extra lifesteal and reload speed from kinetic damage, so I got an extra 4% there. Then getting the extra 2 from Bloodletter, which gives the bleed damage, and then getting the extra 1 into what we've already for kinetic damage and kinetic status effect. So additionally getting that 42%, 24%. These 3, because we're already spec'd into them, are just huge bonuses on top of what we're already getting out of these stats. The next class mod I used a lot, and I switched back and forth, and you can see I still have this from level 28, is the Chaotic Alchemist. This one doesn't have the best of stat bonuses, but that 22% critical hit damage is huge, as we're going to, like I said, continuously try to hit critical hits. But we'll get an extra point into Potence of Suffering, which we've already spec'd into, so gaining increased status effect damage. But the key points here, you get 4 into Prismatic Ichor, which when you apply a status effect, you will then apply another random element, and that will be 120% of the initial status effect. So you'll gain extra status effect damage on enemies. And then you'll get 2 into Keen Suffering. You'll have a bonus 8% chance of status effect damage critically hitting. So that's just, again, extra damage, extra lifesteal, extra survivability all around. The next thing I'm going to talk about is our shield. It doesn't matter whether you use energy shields or armor shields. The key things I looked for throughout are shields that have shield boosters or armor boosters or health boosters. And the reason for this is you want to be able to have your health full all the time, because you want to continuously have the extra blood is power lifesteal damage. So I use shields that have the ability to boost my health or my shields to be able to keep that life full more often, your health full more often. And then this one, for instance, when damaged, 10% chance to drop a Shield booster refills 13% of your shield capacity. These just drop out on the ground. You can pick them up like loot, but you don't have to actually press the use button. You just need to run over the top of them in order to make them equip. And then lastly, talking about rep kits and grenades, find the rep kits and grenades that do the most for you, in the sense of boosting your health, keeping that up, boosting your gun damage if that's a thing for any of your rep kits, or just overall what's going to do the most. For rep kits, my biggest thing that I looked for was ones that had instant health, not health over time. You want that instant health because you want to boost it back up closer to full, if not full, to keep doing extra consistent more damage. So then with the rep kit, you'll have your rep kit. You'll have, once you hit level 50, you'll have a rep kit cooldown boost. And then you'll also have your action skill to boost your health to full. And if, as you can tell the trend here, just keep your health at full at all times in order to continuously boost your damage, to do more lifesteal, to do more damage over time with the kinetic status effects. And then for grenades, I picked just whichever one was working for me at the time. You can see I have this legendary that I found that it works really well. The one that I liked the most that just became outdated was a frost legendary that I picked up at like level 15. And I liked it because of the freeze effect that it had on enemies. So that's it for my Kinetic Survivor build. I hope this helps anybody who may be struggling, gives any new players a starting block build to use. You may not one-shot bosses with this, but you'll at least survive long enough for the rewards. So let me know in the comments if this build helped you, and subscribe for more Borderlands builds along the way. See ya!